California, as we're seeing through the lenses of the Los Angeles mayoral race, is a dysfunctional state. The Democrats talk a lot about democracy dying in darkness. Democracy's dying in California.
So, Victor Davis Hanson, he's a historian. He studies the collapse of civilizations for a living. And when that guy looks at the LA mayor race and uses the word dysfunctional, he's not just throwing out a talking point, he's making a diagnosis. Now, I want you to notice something. He did not say struggling. He did not say going through a rough patch. He said dysfunctional. He said democracy, you know that word they love using? Democracy is dying. That's a historian telling you that what we're watching here in Los Angeles is not an accident. It's not incompetence. And it's not fixable with a new face and an old chair. It's structural. And the reason I keep coming back to this mayor race, Karen Bass, Nithya Raman, Spencer Pratt, is not because of the personalities. It's because this race gave us a window into something that is usually hidden behind press releases and committee meetings. This race let us see how the system moves when it feels threatened. Pay attention to that. Because what you just saw happen in those vote counts was not democracy breathing. It was democracy being managed.
California, as we're seeing through the lenses of the Los Angeles mayoral race, is a dysfunctional state. The Democrats talk a lot about democracy dying in darkness. Democracy's dying in California.
Let's just sit with that for a moment. What he just said. Not dysfunctional like your Wi-Fi goes out sometimes. Dysfunctional like the people in charge have stopped pretending to serve you and just started serving each other. Los Angeles is a proof of concept. This is one of the wealthiest cities on earth. World-class port. We got Hollywood, real estate, tourism, tech, finance. The money that passes through this city is staggering. And yet, the sidewalks are covered in tents. Schools failing, people leaving, businesses closing, the fire department couldn't handle the fires, and somehow Karen Bass wasn't got them when it started. At what point do we stop calling that bad luck and start calling it what it is? The LA mayor race wasn't just an election, it was a stress test. And the system showed you exactly how it responds when outsiders get too close.
In California, what happens is a conservative candidate will take a lead or finish on election day ahead, and then almost with a smirk, the Democratic opponent counts on ballots, mailed-in ballots, that start to appear a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after the actual election deadline, and they are at ratios of 5-to-1, 10-to-1, 20-to-1. And they show the power of the SEIU and other public employee unions, as well as the California Teachers Association, the big money from the billionaire class of Silicon Valley, etc. And then the Democrat candidate that we thought lost actually wins. And then if you allege that something's wrong, you're called a conspiratorial nut or an election denier.
Here's what I want you to think about. If I told you that in every single pickup basketball game, the same team was ahead at halftime and then somehow, some way, always lost by the end, you would not call that a coincidence. After a while, you would start asking who's calling the fouls. That's where California is. This is not me saying the election was stolen. I'm saying that the pattern is undeniable. And the resistance to examining the pattern is itself a story. Because if your system is clean, transparency costs you nothing. You just open the books. You walk people through the process. You welcome the scrutiny because you have nothing to hide. But what California does instead is call you a conspiracy theorist for asking the question. They make curiosity itself the crime. Los Angeles watched lead after lead evaporate and race after race. And when people raised their hands and said, hey, can we talk about how this keeps happening? The answer was sit down. Shut up. You lost. That's not confidence in a clean system. That's a system protecting itself.
Spencer Pratt was ahead by 7 points. And Ms. Raman had already given a concession speech. And now it's a week after the polls closed, and suddenly these troves started appearing all week, in which it wasn't 2-1. She was the third candidate when the election day tallies had begun, and we had about 50% of 60% of the vote. She was well behind Spencer Pratt and well behind Karen Bass. Suddenly, these ballots started coming in, and they were overwhelmingly for the third candidate, Raman. And now, as I'm speaking, suddenly Spencer Pratt lost his lead that he had established, and apparently everybody thought had won. It's a familiar pattern.
7 points on election night. 7. You know what's interesting about Spencer Pratt? The establishment never took him seriously, and that was exactly the problem. Because when you don't take someone seriously, you don't prepare a narrative for them. You don't have talking points ready to go. You don't have the response infrastructure in place. And for a moment, a real documented 7-point moment, he had them flat-footed. Now, I'm not here to try to canonize Spencer Pratt. This is not a fan page. It may seem that way, but this is not a fan page. But what happened to his lead is a case study that every person in Los Angeles should study, regardless of who you voted for. Because the question is never just, did my guy win or lose? The question is, can someone who is not pre-approved, keyword, pre-approved by the machine, ever actually win in this city? And if the answer keeps coming back to no, if the outsider always falls back, no matter how far ahead they are in election night, then you're not living in a democracy. You're living in a simulation of one.
Now, why does this happen? It happens because there is a Democratic monopoly in California. We haven't had a Republican governor in about 15 years. We have no statewide Republican elected officials. There is a supermajority in the state assembly and the state senate. Because the governor appoints Superior Court, Appellate Court, and Supreme Court justices, we haven't had a single conservative justice appointed in 15 years, and most of the conservatives under Arnold Schwarzenegger have now retired. So executive, legislative, judicial, they're all controlled by the left and the Democratic Party.
I want to be very precise here because I don't want this to be confused with the left versus right thing. This is a power argument. When one party controls the executive, the legislature, the courts, the cities, the counties, the school boards, the union contracts, and the major press outlets in a state, the problem is not the party. The problem is the monopoly. You could swap the letter next to the name and the outcomes would still be the same. Because the disease is not ideology. The disease is accountability. California has none. There's no credible opposition forcing anyone to explain where $24 billion in homeless spending went. There is no counterweight making anyone answer for why insurance companies are fleeing the state. There is no check on anything. And when there's no check on power, power does not improve. It doesn't have to improve. It just expands. This is what Los Angeles is living inside right now. Not a failed city. A city that is working exactly as designed. Just not for you.
And pretty soon, a large number of Californians that were upper middle class, lower middle class said, I can't take this anymore. The schools are bad. We have the most illegal aliens. We have the most foreign born. We have the most welfare recipients. We have the most homeless. We have the highest sales, highest gas, highest electricity, highest gas taxes. Schools are rated in the bottom 10. Reason magazine just judged us 49th in roads, et cetera, et cetera. And they left. 12 million. This year, maybe 300,000 to 500,000. These were the conservative party of California, the Republican Party. They're gone.
You know, this is the part that bothers me the most about this whole video, because what Mr. Hanson is describing is not just a political migration. It's a demographic culling. Think about who leaves first when a city becomes unaffordable. It's the small business owners. It's the tradespeople. The teachers who cannot afford rent on a teacher's salary. It's the families who need a backyard and a good school and cannot compete with investors buying up the housing stock. those people leave. And guess what? When those people leave, they take their taxes. They take their civil engagement. They take their children. They take their institutional memory with them. And what stays behind is a population that is either wealthy enough to be insulated from the dysfunction or poor enough to be dependent on the system that is causing it. And both of those groups, for entirely different reasons, keep voting the same way. The machine did not win California by being popular. The machine won California by making it impossible for the opposition to survive here long enough to matter. This is ruthless. And it worked.
Then the ballots come in by mail. There's no ID. And we have ballot harvesting. One person can go to a person's house and say, I need to register you to register vote. Here it is. Show me a credit card, show me anything, or I'll give you an ID number. And then here's your ballot. Fill it out. I'll take it and I'll drop it off at a depository. Bang. And that's why California is screwed up. We have no authentication of anybody. We have no idea how many homeless people are voting. We have no idea how many illegal aliens are voting. We have no idea who is voting because people mail out a ballot. People in the government mail out a ballot to every registered voter, whether that person's been living at the address or not. So traditionally, everybody who has children that go off to college and then they don't come back, they get that ballot at their home. People who are renting still get ballots at that residence when they move out if they don't tell people. So there's thousands of ballots that are floating around for anybody to take, sign, or just make a happy face mark and send in. And because of that, this Democratic monopoly persists.
Here's a genuine question, and I want you to actually think about this before you react to it politically. If a corporation handled your money the way California handles its ballots, no signature verification, third parties collecting and transporting your financial documents, results that take weeks to fully tabulate, would you trust that institution with your retirement account? Of course not. So why are we supposed to extend infinite trust to an electoral process that would fail basic chain of custody standards in any other professional context? This is not about who wins. This is about why the public should believe the result. And right now, California's answer to why should we believe it is essentially because we said so. And if you keep asking, you're a threat to democracy. That's not an answer. That's a deflection from people who know the system benefits them and do not want to examine it too closely. The public, we deserve better. Not because of party affiliation, because we are the ones the whole thing is supposed to be built for.
And they don't listen to the people. In 2014, we passed a water bill, Proposition 1, over $7 billion to build reservoirs. We were desperate for water, but the bureaucracy didn't want it. The Sierra Club didn't want it. The left didn't want it. The people wanted it. So what did they do? They ignored it. They had $2.3 billion to build reservoirs out of that $7-point-something billion water bill. They didn't build the Sykes Reservoir. They didn't build Los Banos Grandes. They didn't build Temperance Flat. We could have had 7 million acre feet. What did they do with it? Gavin Newsom took $250 million of the people's money designated to build dams, and he blew up 4 of them. And they were valuable on the Klamath River. They served recreation. They created clean hydropower. They helped private owners. They had cabins on the lake, and they were flood control. And they were wonderful investments. He blew them all up. He used money that the people voted to build dams to blow them up.
Blow up the dams. Blow up the dams. I need you to understand what Hanson is actually saying here. California voters approved bond money to build water infrastructure, reservoirs, dams, drought protection for a state that has a water crisis basically every other year. And Newsom used that money to remove the dams instead. Now, you can make an environmental argument for the dam removal. Fine. Have that debate. But have it before the ballot measure. have it before the public votes. Do not take the public's. Do not take our money that we approve for one purpose and redirect it to the opposite purpose and then tell us that it was leadership. That's the tale. That is the thing that reveals how Sacramento actually operates. The vote is simply a formality. The money is the real decision. And the real decision is made by people in a room that you never voted for. This is why everybody here in Los Angeles is frustrated with homelessness spending. This is why we're all frustrated with school budgets. This is why we're all frustrated with infrastructure that never seems to improve despite endless ballot measures. You're not imagining it. The pipeline between your vote and your neighborhood, it has a very big leak. But the key part is the leak is intentional.
We had redistricting. We passed a law years ago that said that a bipartisan commission of 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 independents would redistrict according to population and geography without politics. No sooner had they done that, the Democrats who had the power in the state loved that facade, and they began bringing groups to testify and say, well, you need to consider race and ethnicity, and this group's underserved, and that group's underserved, and da-da-da. And before you knew it, they had redistricted so that although 40% of Republicans vote in national elections in California for 40% of the, I should say, of the electorate vote Republican, we were only getting about, out of, say, 52 congressional seats in our caucus, we were getting about 10 or 12. And then we went to 9. As I speak today, the bipartisan, disinterested election commission has so redistricted that we have 13% of our congressional district is Republican. And by the way, the Democrats added that to the original bill. It just said state redistricting for Senate and state assembly seats. They added the congressional seats. Is that enough for the Democrats? No. Even though that Donald Trump got over 38% in the last national election from California voters, 30% of them voted for Trump. And although we only have 13% representation in the Congress, they redistrict again. Gavin Newsom introduced a bill, the Democratic power lobbies funded it, and now we're going to go down to about 5 seats. So they want to get down to 6 or 7%.
So redistricting. This is the part of the conversation where people's eyes glaze over. And that is exactly why the machine loves it. Because nobody is going to protest maps. Nobody's going to make a viral video about congressional boundary. It's boring. It's boring by design. But here is what redistricting actually is. It is the system choosing its voters before the voters choose the system. When you draw the lines, you decide the outcome. Not always perfectly, not always cleanly, but consistently enough that over time, the composition of legislature becomes a reflection of the map maker's intentions rather than the public's actual politics. And when you combine gerrymandered districts with ballot harvesting, with no ID requirements, with mail-in everything, with late-counted ballots, what you end up with is not an election. What you end up with is a ratification ceremony. A ratification ceremony for decisions that were already made. That is the California lock. Not one thing, all of it together. The maps, the process, the money, the media, the culture. It's all a system, and it's working beautifully. The question for Los Angeles is whether enough people understand what system they're living inside before the next election gives them another chance to pretend they're choosing freely. So here's where I land after watching Mr. Hanson break all of this down. And I want to reiterate, he's not a talk radio guy. This is not a Twitter pundit. This is a man who has spent his career studying what happens to societies when institutions stop functioning. When the gap between what a government claims to do and what it actually does becomes too wide for the public to ignore. And his verdict on California, well, even though it appears to be pessimism, it's not. It's observation. Observation backed by the same methodology he would apply to ancient Rome or Germany or any civilization that chose comfort over accountability until it was too late to choose anything else. The LA mayor race. Spencer Pratt ahead by 7 on election night. Karen Bass eventually confirmed. Nithya Raman locked in. The machine intact. That was not just an election result. That was a message. The message was, we know how to manage this. We have always known how to manage this. And until you understand the full architecture of what you're up against, your vote is just data that we process. I don't say this to make you give up. I say this because it's the first step to changing a system. The first step to changing a system is refusing to pretend the system is something that it is not. Los Angeles is not really broken. Los Angeles is controlled, and the difference between those two things matter more than any one candidate, any party, any single election. Know the difference. I'm Wolf Kage, and this is Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and until the next time, peace.